and Sean Levine on the BetQL Network.
Good Saturday evening. We're going to talk a little boxing later on in the show. The pound for pound number one, Bud Crawford, is in the ring tonight. We talked a little bit of UFC earlier today. The fight was in Abu Dhabi. Corey Sandhagen went down by decision to Umar Nurmagomedov. A bunch of fight announcements this week, BT, coming up in Abu Dhabi next time, October 26th. We've been waiting for this one. Max Holloway versus Ilia Topuria. So Max has the BMF belt, and now he has a chance to get the other belt. How cool would that be at this point in Max Holloway's career, where nobody thought that he was done, but I don't think a lot of people a couple of years ago, after losing 3 times to Alexander Volkanovski, thought he was going to ever fight for a belt again, and now we know he's going to get his shot against Ilia Topuria.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, like, the guy was basically in no man's land, it felt like, because everybody realized that this guy was the second best featherweight in the world. He just couldn't get past Alexander Volkov, and at a point, their rivalry was so damn close. A lot of people thought that he had gotten hosed in some of the fights, and then the third fight happened, and it felt like, well, there's really no need to see them fight anymore. And now, because he had this moment of the year at UFC 300, the career is fast-tracked. He gets this amazing title fight against a fun power striker in Ilia Topuria, cocky as hell. And, you know, I'm excited about it, man. This is as fun a matchup as I think we're going to get this year.
I haven't seen the early odds. I know that you pulled them out of somewhere. My guess would be Ilya minus 170, Max close to 2-1.
Yeah, you're pretty spot on. There's we don't have the official like books having them, but some of the ones floating around online right now. Ilia Topuria minus 160, Max Holloway plus 140 for this upcoming matchup, which is about right. I think that's about
tempting.
Right.
That's tempting to take Max Holloway as an underdog at this point, man. I imagine a lot of money is going to be coming in on him the closer the fight gets.
Yeah, I was going to just parrot that same thing, man. I think that he's such a popular fighter, and that the lead up, like, maybe it won't completely flip, but I could definitely see it get down to as close to pick him as possible by the time they get to fight night.
That's absolutely going to be a pick 'em when those guys make the walk. All right, another one that's a tough one to pin when it comes to the odds makers, Khamzat Chimaev. I honestly figured that we wouldn't see him the rest of the calendar year. I was surprised when I saw him, and then I was surprised to see the opponent, Robert the Reaper Whitaker. Robert Whitaker is still an absolute beast, and then you got Khamzat, who has the health concerns, has the weight concerns. Is he going to show up? I haven't seen the odds for this one either, but I would imagine Robert Whitaker a slight favorite. Am I close?
No. The early odds that are floating around online right now have Khamzat minus 230 with Robert Whitaker a near 2-1 dog.
That's
which
insane.
Is crazy to me. That's crazy.
Based on what? I mean, I've been watching Robert Whitaker now for a decade, winning titles, beating up champions. Khamzat Chimaev, let's not pretend like he's been here for a long time where he's got 25 fights inside the octagon. He does not. And let's also not pretend like he's been dominant, because against Usman, that fight was relatively close. Usman right off his couch. Gilbert Burns gave him everything that he wanted. Dude, what are we doing here? Do you just want to pool our money together and get rich off Robert Whitaker that night?
I'm pretty stunned by that. Like, I could see, like, just because obviously Khamzat's got the wrestling, like, all right, you want to lean it a little bit. Grapplers typically will get the nod, but Whitaker, man, that last fight against Aliskerov was so damn impressive. He looked in his prime fast. I know Aliskerov looked a little bit like, wow, the bright lights got to him, and he was thrust into this main event out of nowhere, but still, Robert Whitaker just absolutely pummeled him and looked fantastic. I don't get that, man. I don't get that. Especially, like, it's not only the questions of Khamzat's fighting resume, but it's really a physical thing too. Like, all right, this guy is coming off of some crazy illness that threw off this last fight. I'm just supposed to have this faith he's going to bounce back like that and be this monster from Fight Island 4 years ago?
And then you got Robert Whitaker, who looks like he's 25 years old. And you mentioned Khamzat, the grappling advantage. Well, what about on the feet? Because that's my biggest question with Chimaev is I don't think that he's got the smoothest hands, Robert Whittaker can punch now, right? That guy is one of the great boxers in the UFC. His hands looked great last time out. So it's just a clash of styles. And that's why, again, most of the time I tend to lean toward the wrestler, the grappler, this case Chimaev. I guess in hindsight, I shouldn't be surprised that he is the favorite. But what'd you say he is?
He's minus 230.
That's insane. That's way off. I wonder if that line ends up readjusting itself closer to fight night, because Robert Whittaker, honestly, I'd bet him all day as a pick'em and Sunday. Robert Whittaker's going to win that fight. Styles make fights, right? And I think that Whittaker has the better style and more experience. All right, we got a rematch. You have one more thing? Sorry.
No, I think you've said pretty much all of it, but I think, the other thing you just wonder about is, this is also a guy who we've seen at middleweight, but we've only seen him at middleweight against welterweight, basically against Kamaru Usman. And I think that we've seen him have some real striking issues, and he's taken on the likes of Gilbert Burns and Kamaru, who are not exactly guys who are hands first known guys. And now you're taking on maybe one of the best strikers the middleweight division's ever seen, so it's a big ask, man.
He throws, I don't know, kind of looping, looks just, he's still raw, Khamzat Chimaev, and you're putting him up against a guy in Robert Whittaker who is the exact opposite of that. He's fought in so many championship fights. He's fought against every single style. He's not afraid of a wrestler. Are you kidding me? So I absolutely love Robert Whittaker at any odds, and certainly as almost a 3-1 underdog in that fight. And then we got Ciryl Gane in a matchup versus Alexander Volkov, friend of the show. Dude, this one, something tells me Gane's favored because for whatever reason, the odds makers love him. I could not be less impressed with Ciryl Gane. I'm going to put all my money on Volkov.
Yeah, Ciryl Gane right now, the early numbers have him at minus 250 with Volkov being plus 210. Jake pointed out they did fight before. That is true that they fought back in 2021. That was the win that he had before picking up the interim title against Derek Lewis, Ciryl Gane. But they've both really been
that was
on.
A thing until you just said it. I forgot he was.
Well,
really? Did that really happen?
That did happen. But I will say, if we're going to go, since the 2022 turn of the calendar, you have an Alexander Volkov who's 4-0. Three of those are finishes, and one of them was a very impressive win over Sergey Pavlovich, who we all think is still one of the scariest guys in the division. This Alexander Volkov, there's something about him right now, man. Ever since his loss to Tom Aspinall, something has gotten him going. And, you could probably fluff it a little bit at some of the guys he's beaten, like Rosenstrike or Tai Tuivasa, but that's also a common win that Ciryl Gane has after he lost his belt to Francis. So I don't know, man. I just think Volkov looks so comfortable fighting with his size right now. And Ciryl Gane doesn't. I think that this is not the same intimidating guy that was, yes, this hybrid, fast guy on his feet. But something happened that night that he lost to Francis Ngannou, because he took on first of all, busted up Francis Ngannou, couldn't hold him down, got out wrestled by him. We know what happened to him and John Jones. I mean, geez, that was not even close. So, yeah, one has to wonder, is this a Volkov who, even at his age, which is, what is he? 35 now, I think this is a guy that seems more comfortable in his fighting style and his size. So live dog to me, dude,
very much. I'm looking at the parlay numbers. You can get 15-1 odds if you parlay Volkov with Robert Whittaker just to win. You don't even need to figure out how they're going to win or when they're going to win, if they're going to finish him or sub him or knock him out. It doesn't matter. If you just take Volkov, if the odds are close to what you just said, because we go by the official BetMGM odds on this show, so we'll figure that out when it gets closer to fight night. But right now, if you were to parlay Robert Whittaker with Volkov, $10 would get you $150. And for the fun of it, if you want to throw Max Holloway in there also, that'll pay you 25-1, dude, if you take all three underdogs. And that's a live three dog parlay right there. I love it. Also on that card, 50K Dan Ige is back in the octagon versus Lerone Murphy. Gotta love Dan Ige.
Yeah, I don't have the numbers for that one, but that of course, coming off of what he just did, stepping in on a day's notice, badass, man. That guy
not even a day. Is 2 hours.
Yeah,
notice.
hours notice with that at the him trying to save a UFC main event. So he's riding high right now. Confidence has to be in a great place. Almost, and by the end of that fight against Diego Lopez, looked like he was doing really well. So, and now you got to feel good for him. He at least gets some time to prepare for this one.
Yeah, that'll be nice to have more than an hour and 45 minutes before you have to step into a cage and fight a trained killer. That can't be an easy thing to do, although that's the type of thing that endears you forever with Dana White. Like Kevin Holland was that guy for a while that would just step up and take any fight, and it feels like you're good for as long as you want to fight in the promotion. Coming up before the October 26th card, the Saturday before from the Apex, they need to stop those Apex cards. This is getting out of control. Rob Font versus Kyler Phillips. Any thoughts on that fight?
Nope.
No thoughts. Okay. Coming up on October 5th, that is UFC 307, Jose Aldo Jr. versus Mario Bautista. Any thoughts on that fight?
Yeah. Anytime like Jose gets out there and is still doing his thing, I think it's an honor to see him still go about it. You don't get to see the second best featherweight of all time go do his thing. It's a true honor. So I'm excited.
You're the only person. Well, you and Conor McGregor are the only two people that think that he's the best featherweight of all time. Legitimately. He'll tell you that and you'll say that. And everybody else will be like, what is this guy talking about? The fact is that Conor McGregor, if we're making a Mount Rushmore of the most important people in the history of the UFC, he's right up there. He definitely gets one of those heads. I don't know if he's where Dana, he's up there. But when it comes to actual fighting and defending his belt, and look what he's been toward the end of his career. Let's not pretend like, what is he in his last 5 fights? What is he, 2-3, 1-4? He's, as a fighter, I can't believe I'm going to say this because I used to love me some Conor McGregor. Dude, he's wildly overrated. Seriously. I mean, let's call it what it is. Wildly overrated as a fighter. His entire career. Look at you.
So if a wildly overrated guy beats the guy you say is number one in 14 seconds, what's that make your guy?
Let him fight again. Let him fight again. They could fight again tomorrow, then they could fight another 8 times. Jose Aldo would win every single one of those. And yeah, he did knock him out. So you have that trump card. I'll give you that one. And it didn't last very long either. Brandon Royval steps back into the cage coming up October 12th. To me, Royval, always fun when he steps into the cage. And for some reason, one of those guys that I always end up betting on.
Yeah, he's fun. I mean, like, especially at the lower weight classes, like you're looking for a guy, he's a wild man. And so it's always interesting going out there and seeing what he can bring to the table. And he's coming off a win against Brandon Moreno. So this is a guy who's now gotten a chance to be right in there with this contention. So I'm with you, man. He's been really, really fun and he's always been entertaining, but it's cool to see him now be at this kind of a peak of the division.
And he walks out to the ODB, baby, I like it raw. Baby, I like it raw. I love me some Raw Dog Royval, although he did lose his fight in Kansas City.
Not ridiculous at all seeing you do that. It's not ridiculous at all seeing you do that with your Steve Irwin hat.
What do you want from me, dude? I'm here for the people. I'm an entertainer. And then 307, hey, ladies, Kayla Harrison and Caitlin Vieira. That's a good fight because it feels like there's not a whole lot of competition really out there for Kayla Harrison.
Yeah, and I think, she's coming off of that UFC 300, great win against Holly Holm. Kayla's got a star quality about her, man. I mean, she held that with the PFL. I think that she was probably the most recognizable thing since the PFL. While she was in the PFL, I would say that, with no Francis Ngannou, they're struggling a little bit to find some footing without having Kayla Harrison there as far as like faces of the promotion or who are the best people to market the promotion. Like they're coming down to South Florida in a couple of weeks. I'm like, who the hell is fighting on this card? Like, I don't know who any of these people are, respectfully. But so Kayla Harrison being in the UFC, I think that was probably a damage is done with respectfully there, but just the truth. Like I'm looking at this, I'm just looking at the card. I'm like, yeah, no, I mean, I'm sure I could. I won't just don't tell him what I said, but I'm just like, I just think that you look at it and you're just like, hey, who is the face of the PFL right now? Right. Like, and I'm still confused, like PFL, Bellator, what's what? Like, is Johnny Eblin in the PFL? Because then I go Johnny Eblin, but is he in Bellator or is he in PFL? I don't know what he's in.
It does feel like there's like a lame duck thing going on right now with whatever the second biggest promotion is behind the UFC. I'm not exactly sure who it is or who they fight with. In the case of Eblin, dude, just jump ship. just come to the UFC. I was telling my guys earlier that I was watching the fights with, I was like, there's a guy right now in Bellator/PFL that would beat up any of these guys in Johnny Eblin. Am I crazy?
No, I don't think you are. I think, I think that middleweight is definitely, I think Eblin can give a lot of those guys a hell of a time for sure. He's got no weaknesses. He's super talented. It's just a shame that he's over there kind of toiling right now.
Also trains out of Kansas City. Also friend of the show. He joined us one time. Johnny Eblin, good guy. All right, coming up on the other side, a couple of friends turn foes right here on your radio. A segment called You Gonna Fight Me? We throw blows back and forth right here on the BetQL Network.